This is my history of editing blog. Over the years, technology has developed. The ways in which we edit films, videos have changed drastically. The origins of cinema are linked back to Edward Muybridge, who found interest in the way that things move. He set up a link of cameras and took a shot every frame of a horse, and when played back it fooled the brain and gave the illusion of movement. It was then discovered that if you film something at 24 frames per second, the brain will believe that the images are actually moving, and it gives the illusion of movement. The actual first film cameras were a roll of film, moved frames, were a roll of film moved by frames mechanically that moved past a shutter and lens system. They were invented by France by the Lumiere brother and by Thomas Edison at the same time. The first film cameras with the first films created with these cameras were not edited. They were usually one single shot from a single point of view. And here's an example that I'm going to include with my pro editing skills. The idea that you could use a variety of shot choices, use multiple points of view, and that the story followed the action didn't come about until the concept of editing in camera was invented. Edited in camera means that the film is created shot by shot in the camera. You add the next shot of the story by filming it next. Editing in camera still does exist, not as much. There's a film festival called Straight 8 Film Festival, where the filmmakers have to shoot a movie on a single 8mm film cartridge, or on a single camera. Editing in the camera was obviously never going to be good enough, as it's very difficult to create a film just purely off filming the next scene after one another. Obviously you need to trim shoots down or edit them in some way if they don't go as planned. In the early days of film editing, the first ways of editing was cutting up, literally getting the film and cutting it up and taking it back together. And for many years this process was used, and it was just done by hand with a pair of scissors and a magnifying glass, which is pretty basic. The first mechanical editing desk was used to cut up and reassemble a movie, and it was invented by someone called Irwin Serriera in 1924. These machines obviously revolutionised editing because they allowed a cutting technique and then allowed for more sophisticated editing techniques to come about. When you cut a film up and stick it back together with magnifying glass and scissors, this is whether it's done by hand or whether it's done by the machine. It's called linear editing, because you assemble the clips one after the other. It's purely mechanical. From 1920 until the end of the Second World War, film editing was almost done on the Movalia decks. Then in 1945 the German company Steenbach introduced their machines. Steenbach's replicating the industry standard. In the invention of editing, the idea of recording something other than film was invented in 1951 by the AmpMax research team. The first video editing the first video editing machines came into existence a few years later in 1956. The original video editing systems were also linear systems. However, instead of physically cutting the videos, the data was copied from one tape to another. You control the decks, which would call it in. You would control the decks, and that would control the in and out points when cutting. Obviously, at this point in time, the video editing techniques were really primitive. Used primarily for TV usage. Obviously, not suitable for cinema use, as they were really basic. The first feature film shot on video was Julie and Julia in 1987, and then the first commercial movie shot in HD was in 2004 for Once Upon a Time in Mexico. Now moving on, non-linear editing systems. The first attempts to create a non-linear editing system were in the 1970s, but no one was able to bring a commercial system to the market. Lucasfilm, who I think created Star Wars, maybe, started to develop a system in the 1980s with their Edidroid, a system based on Laserdisc technology. This, however, never turned into a commercial system. However, the first commercially successful professional NLE system was created in 1989 when Avid launched the Avid One Media Composite Editing System. The Avid editing system was a hardware plus software system based on Apple computer technology. This was the first computer-based system that turned data into files that could be then moved about on a timeline. One of the major developments which allowed this to happen was the creation of digital video cameras. The first professional camera, the Sony D1, coming out on the market in 1986. This then allowed the change from linear to non-linear video editing methods, which obviously revolutionized video editing. Whereas drama, news, or whatever, the purpose of editing is still the same. We do this by controlling the audience's point of view. The shots that we decide to shoot in production need to be exactly what we need to tell a story in the edit. That is my pre-production blog.